Tonight's special episode of College Crossfire features an all-star panel of our most astounding analysts, duking it out to see who's number one, because tonight is the Tournament of Champions. All that and more on College Crossfire. What are those?
He's coming back for that 2021 MVP. He's better than Josh Allen. He's better than Baker Mayfield. He's not better than Mahomes. I can't say that.
Well, Justin Tucker gives him his 99 rating in Madden.
Ceiling is the roof. There is no roof, so they have a pretty high ceiling.
The SAT or the ACT? let's really see how.
That's enough talk. Let's talk. Welcome into College Crossfire. I am your host, Drew Jacob. Let's make the rounds. On first base, we've got Adam. Adam, how you doing today?
Doing good. Someone had to fact check me. I think I'm a two-time defending champion at this thing. I'm not actually sure. But, someone wants to fact check that. I'm in here, I think, to defend my title. I think I won in the fall.
Defending champion Adam comes in as the 3 seed for tonight's round. Let's see if he can pull the upset. And coming in as our 4th overall seed, we've got Jackson. Jackson, feeling confident?
I'm feeling pretty confident. I went to Topgolf yesterday and hit it pretty well. So, to carry some of that luck into the Tournament of Champions, I had to, dress the outfit of one of golf's premier athletes. So
the 5 and 6 seed saw his swings at Topgolf.
This is and they ran away scared. That's right, folks. Normally at our Tournament of Champions, we're working with 6, but like Adam said, the 5 and 6 seeds were too afraid to show up. So tonight is going to work a little differently than a normal episode of College Crossfire. In this first round, what we'll be seeing is old Adam and Jackson duking it out, and the winner will advance to the second round, where they will join our 1 and 2 seeds to continue the tournament. So everybody, for now, that's enough talk. Let's wait. Is it Clark? Clark Dalton, everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, while Clark gets mic'd up, the games must continue. Our 5 seed has just made his triumphant return, but we've got to get rolling with our first question. Let's see if when Clark comes in, he can pull a comeback. But that's enough talking. That's enough waiting. Let's talk. Despite the wishes of Longhorn Nation, ESPN is doing everything they can to drum up the Longhorn hype machine and get started on their yearly cycle of Orange Kool-Aid production. Seriously, it would be nice if Texas could just suck in peace and quiet. In this case, they did so by awarding Texas the 6th highest ranking in their 2022 FPI projections. This news came just in time for Texas's most consistent yearly win, the annual Orange versus White spring game. Hey guys, I hear the offensive line's finally putting it together this year, just like they supposedly do every year. Now that the hype train is starting up and is about to leave the station, panelists, what do you expect to see and who do you expect to see stand out at Texas's upcoming spring showcase? This one, we're starting with Adam.
Yeah, I'm interested to see the offense. You talk about the offensive line there, Drew, but I think we're going to have to wait till this summer to really see them until Devin Campbell and Kelvin Banks, 2 big-time recruits for the Longhorns, come to town. So this weekend, I'm looking at the skill positions. We obviously know what we're going to get out of Bijan Robinson, out of Xavier Worthy, but how about Wyoming transfer receiver Isaiah Nair? How about Alabama transfer tight end Jaleel Billingsley? Looking at those guys and seeing what production they can bring, because last year, whether it was due to injuries or whether it was due to lack of production, the Texas receiving corps really shrunk until it was really Xavier Worthy standing out. So looking at the skill position players and, of course, the quarterback battle, how are Quinn Ewers, how is Hudson Card going to look? Last year was a 20-12 snooze fest. The biggest highlight was a 95-yard pick 6 by Deshaun Jamison. So hopefully to see some offensive production this year and see how these 2 quarterbacks look in some live game action, because Quinn Ewers, he hasn't played a game of live football for nearly 18 months, dating all the way back to the UIL 6A state title game against Austin Westlake.
18 months of sitting out of action, but the hype surrounding Ewers certainly has not died down. It is going to be very crucial to see how those skill position guys play, because coming next season, I think we all agree Texas is going to need them to show out. Jackson, I've got you next.
Yeah, so I'm going to agree with Adam here. I'm going to go with more specifically the wide receiver position. Wide receiver is something that Texas has struggled with ever since Colin Johnson and Devin Duvernay left the team a couple years back. Now we have a lot more headlights. We have a new coach, Brennan Marion, who produced the 2022 Blitnikoff winner Jordan Addison. Now he gets to work with a creme de la creme of skill position players. Xavier Worthy, Jordan Whittington, Troy Omieri, Isaiah Nair. If we can get two guys besides Xavier Worthy to show out this spring, I'll feel a lot more confident about Texas' chances heading into the fall.
Absolutely. You know, a lot of the talk has been around Ewers for sure, but you need to see what kind of weapons he's going to have next season. And Clark just a little bit late, but we're happy you could join us. Everybody, Clark is our fifth seed, and he is going to be answering this question. I'm glad he got here in time. Clark, how you feel?
Pretty good.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
How do you feel about the
punctuality?
But how about the spring game?
I think I'm actually going to focus on the opposite side of the ball, because I feel like the problem last year with Texas football was not the offense, because you saw pieces develop eventually. Bijan Robinson became one of the best players in the country. Xavier Worthy was breaking records literally. And even though there were some problems with the quarterback, Hudson Card had his moments, specifically that deep touchdown in the West Virginia game to Xavier Worthy. Let's focus on what the problem has been for the past 3 seasons now, which is the defensive side of the football. Texas has lost so many games because of their defense breaking down in the fourth quarter and allowing these big collapses to happen. One in mind was that game at Cotton Bowl against that team from Norman in the Red River rivalry game. And even the year before that, Iowa State, and this year with Oklahoma State, allowing big double-digit multiple leads. And one reason they got Gary Patterson this offseason was he is a defensive coach. And that's something that Texas needs to develop, and that's the main improvement I think you want to see if you're a Texas fan.
Absolutely. You know, over the last few years at Texas, the Longhorns have lost a lot of games where they have scored a lot of points. That has not typically been their issue, so eyes must be on the defense coming up in the spring game. A lot of points getting awarded in this round, though, because Adam and Clark, you guys will be tying for the 3, and Jackson, you'll be getting the 2. Veterans Day came early for Texas baseball to the tune of a 14-2 home loss to the Air Force Academy yesterday evening. Though the Longhorns brought the series to a tie this evening, this doesn't excuse the rest of their recent skid, which also includes a 2-1 series loss to middling Kansas State and a losing record in the Big 12 Conference. A team that started the year with the most hype in the nation may very well now find themselves outside of the top 25 entirely come the next poll. So, panel, what X factor does Texas baseball need to turn things around while they still can? And on this one, we are starting with Jackson.
All right, so let's go with the obvious one. Someone in the Texas bullpen besides Aaron Nixon to step up. Literally, anybody, one person. With Texas, Pete Hansen, all great how he has been this season, he's showing signs that he's not going to be able just to eat up 9 innings in a single game. He's going to need help to get him out of jams in the 7th or 8th inning. Just somebody who can absorb innings without giving up a lot of runs. No, they don't have to be the next Tanner Witt. They don't have to be perfect, but just someone that can keep Texas from ballooning their run allowance. I'll go ahead and say Marcus Oliveras. He's one of only 5 players in Texas with under a 3 ERA. Everybody else has ERAs that have ballooned since the TCU series. We need someone to step up in that bullpen and step up fast.
Absolutely. You started saying you were stating the obvious, but sometimes the obvious needs to be stated. If there's a problem and we can all see it, we can agree it needs to be corrected. Clark, we're on to you next.
And one thing that was interesting about that bullpen is it was very hyped coming into the season, but one player who's just, for some reason, I don't know what's going on with him this year. You know he has talent, and we know he can be a good player, is Tristan Stevens. As he struggled mightily in that Kansas State series in the game they lost 8-1. He had a wild pitch in the top of the 2nd inning, which just proved to turn the game around, and that's sort of when the wheels fell off the wagon and Texas started going downhill. And also Stevens, his ERA is kind of high this season. It's not terrible at a 4.13, but still, this is a player who's supposed to be an all Big 12 player, and he's not producing elite numbers that he can. And we know that with Tanner Witt not being there anymore, they need one extra elite arm. Not at this point in the season, one of these pitchers, they're too young. They're not going to develop into an elite arm right away. That's just not realistic. So that's at that point when you need a more experienced player to step in and come to their top level. And Tristan Stevens needs to be that guy moving forward.
Absolutely. Someone needs to essentially get things under control in the Texas bullpen. I mean, things are just getting out of hand, and you just can't expect the bats to have to show up every single night to have any chance of a win. Adam, we're on to you next.
Yeah, kind of going off of what Jackson and Clark said, it's the bullpen. I'm looking, we did see some promise over this Air Force series of guys coming out of the bullpen. We saw LeBaron Johnson Jr. come out. He pitched 2 scoreless innings yesterday, and then Joshua Stewart had 2 1/3 scoreless innings today. So, you know, those guys, I believe they have 14 innings pitched coming into today combined on the season. So those are guys we haven't seen a ton of out of the bullpen, but they found a way to shut Air Force down for a couple innings. And then I think the other thing is just health. I mean, Eric Kennedy has missed 17 days coming into yesterday. Duvernay's game with a hamstring issue, and then Ivan Melendez missed a couple of games with a shoulder issue. So getting those key weapons offensively healthy, and then just trying to see if we can find is Stewart or is Johnson Jr. Could they be an X factor out of the bullpen for Texas? They definitely showed some promise against Air Force. Let's see if they can continue that into future series because Texas needs it desperately. 24 runs given up over a 2-game series against Air Force and 16 in 2 losses against Kansas State. Not pretty reading for a team that hopes of going back to Omaha this year.
And you're just not going to do that giving up this many runs. Like, to teams, I mean, it's not even like they've been playing, you know, the absolute creme de la creme of baseball lately. I mean, Air Force and Kansas State, no disrespect, but you're right, you're not making it back to Omaha if you're giving up those sort of runs to those sort of teams. That said, Adam, great answer. You'll be getting the 3 on this one. Jackson, don't worry, though, because you'll be getting the 2. And Clark, the 1. Well, that round flew by, ladies and gentlemen, but when we come back, these 3 panelists will be duking it out with 2 more questions to see who will advance in the Tournament of Champions. You won't want to miss it. Welcome back to College Crossfire, but before we get started, let's take a look at the scoreboard. Leading the first round with 6 points, we have our 3rd seed Adam, and tied for 2nd, we have Jackson and Clark, each with 4 points respectively. 2 more questions left to decide which one of these 2 will move on and continue into the episode. So let's just jump right back into it. The NBA playoffs are underway with multiple games in each first-round series in the books. This is the time of year where stars shine or burn out the brightest, so naturally, the biggest names in the league have been in focus. That said, panel, I'd like to know which of the young guys you think has stepped up in the most impressive fashion and which one you will think will continue to do so as the playoffs roll on. And on this one, we're starting with Adam.
Continue to do so. I'm going to go Jordan Poole with the Warriors. It's his first playoff games, first playoff experience against the Denver Nuggets. The Warriors have been tearing Nuggets apart. I think there's I did say the Nuggets could win a series. I'm going to revoke that. I said that on previous Crossfire. The Warriors are tearing them apart, but Jordan Poole, 59 points combined the first 2 games. He had 5 threes in each game. I mean, he's set himself up for a big payday. I remember him back in college with Michigan. He hit a clutch 3-pointer at the buzzer to win against Houston in the round of 32. That year, Michigan ended up going all the way to the national championship game. So he's proven to step up in clutch moments before. He's done that again so far for the Warriors. And this is a talented Warriors team. If you have now Jordan Poole adding to Steph Curry and Klay Thompson adding to their production, he could be one who's producing all the way through the playoffs. The Warriors make a deep run.
The absolute last thing I think anyone wants to see is the Warriors once again having a dominant big 3. That said, it's looking like he might be able to step up into that kind of role as the tournament goes on. This one, though, actually, Clark, we're going to you next.
Yeah, one young guy who I've been extremely impressed with throughout the course of the season, and it's ironic because I was pretty critical of this team at the beginning of the year, is Anthony Edwards and the Minnesota Timberwolves. What's so impressive is it's only year 2 for Anthony Edwards, and in Game 1 against the Memphis Grizzlies, he stepped up with 36 points, and he was hitting 3-pointers now all over the place. Now, I don't think that's going to happen because he's not a shooter, but what impresses me is his mentality attacking the basket, because we know great players like, I'm going to be careful with this comparison because I'm not saying he's this dude, but great players like Michael Jordan, great players like Kobe Bryant, those are guys who are slashers and are not afraid to make plays at the end of the game and just attacking people. Anthony Edwards has that type of confidence, and I think he can continue it moving forward. This could be a huge moment for Minnesota because I think this is a winnable series for them. I think they could upset Memphis if things go right for them. So don't be surprised if Anthony Edwards is somebody we're talking about after these playoffs are over.
Absolutely, and if they're going to pull that upset, Edwards is going to need to play a pivotal role. This is what we're talking about. You know, you expect the stars to show out, but I think what really separates a lot of these teams that are kind of close into the pack is when the young guy, who are the guys that you don't necessarily expect, who steps up. Jackson, see if you can step up and answer this question.
So I'm going to go with the team all the way down, a number 8 seed. I'm going to go with Brandon Ingram from the New Orleans Pelicans. In the past 4 games he's played, he's averaging close to 31 points per game, 7 rebounds, and well over 5 assists in the small forward. He's gone from small forward to playing kind of the point guard role, as Adam was talking about earlier. And, you know, for the New Orleans Pelicans team, are they going to go all the way to the finals? No. Are they probably going to beat the Suns? I don't think so either. But I think over a 7-game series, he's going to be someone that is going to test this Suns team. And he's been benefiting from Zion Williamson, who hasn't played, you know, since I don't know when. Zion's been stealing a lot of that limelight from Brandon Ingram, and I think it's helping him tremendously just kind of stay out of the spotlight. He's been leading the Pelicans in scoring 2 out of 4 games, and I think if the Pelicans want to take this to 7 games, it's going to have to be on Brandon Ingram's shoulders.
Absolutely great performance from him so far, and he's probably going to need to continue leading them, as you said. That said, Adam is going to continue leading this game, at least for now, as he will be getting the 3. Clark, you'll be getting the 2, and Jackson, the 1. Texas ex Scottie Scheffler just won the Masters in impressive fashion, outpacing the field by multiple strokes and rendering the 18th hole a formality with his dominant performance. He hasn't been on many people's radars for that long, but as the winner of the Masters, he's currently the top golfer in the world. That said, this was his first and so far only major tournament win, so panel, do you think that Scheffler is legitimately the current best golfer in the world as his ranking and station would currently suggest? On this one, start with Jackson.
Well, build a better resume. I mean, what's the only argument you have against him? That he hasn't started that many tournaments? In the past 7 tournaments, he's won, I think, 5 of them and has another top 10 in that finish, I think finishing number 7. So Scottie Scheffler has more than deserved that number 1 rank. Who cares how many matches he's played? I expect him to continue it, and it's good to see another Longhorn besides, Jordan Spieth, having so much success in the golf world.
Absolutely. Even with Scheffler's recent rise, I feel like Spieth was the more talked about Longhorn. So it's about that time for someone else to rise. Clark, we're on to you next, though.
I think Scottie Scheffler is the best golfer in the world, but I don't think Scottie Scheffler knows he's the best golfer in the world, because after the match play, he was asked a question like, do you feel that number 1 ranking setting in yet? And he was like, no, I just feel like the same normal guy. So I think that's sort of why Scottie Scheffler rose to the top this year, because you need that relaxed mentality, especially in a sport like golf where it's all on you, and you're seeing him play consistently. What impressed me about his Masters performance in particular, it would be different if he was winning by like a stroke. It was a really close tournament, but he was by far, and it wasn't even close compared to the other golfers, dominant. He was clearly the best in the field there. I think right now with his confidence, with his relaxed manner, he's going to have a great year throughout the rest of the year. Now, will he be able to pull it off in 5 years? I don't know the answer to that question, but I think right now Scottie Scheffler looks pretty good.
This is a good point. I tuned into the finals at the Masters a little late, but I was surprised to see just how far ahead he was of everybody. To the point where, did you see his performance on the last hole? Did you see he kept missing the putt, ladies and gentlemen, but he was so far ahead. It started to be funny. You didn't think he was actually in any danger, and that just shows how dominant he was.
He's one of us.
Adam, we're on to you next.
Yeah, I mean, Scheffler, he's won 4 of the last 6 tournaments he started in, and they aren't even just straight up, tournaments. The Dell Match Play is a knockout competition, so he's not, he wins the non-traditional tournament in Dell Match Play, and then he wins the 3 other more traditional tournaments, including the Masters, which is arguably the biggest tournament on the PGA Tour. That Masters victory, actually, that was the last major that he had gotten a top 10 in before. So I think, you look at other sports, the NBA, NFL, you're not power ranking teams based on their pedigree from past seasons. You're saying, who's the best team right now? Scottie Scheffler is definitely the best golfer in the world right now. No one else has won 4 out of their last 6 starts. He dominated the Masters. He is definitely deserving of the number 1 ranking of the world. And if he keeps up like this, I think he's definitely got some more victories not too far out in the future.
You bring up a very good point. People have been talking about, even me, talking about his lack of other major tournament wins, but not many people are talking about how he's top 10 in so many, and all of the other ones at this point. So great answers all around, everybody, but Clark, you will be getting the 3 on this one, Jackson the 2, and Adam the 1. 1 second to tabulate, folks. 5, 7. Let's see, as I suspected, Adam, despite getting the 1 on this last question, you will be getting the win and moving on to the next round of the College Crossfire Tournament of Champions. Folks, when we come back, it's going to be Adam versus our number 1 seed Carter and our number 2 seed Jacob. You won't want to miss it. Welcome back to College Crossfire, and the points that you've seen so far are wiped. Everybody starts back at 0 because this is round 2 of the Tournament of Champions. Our first base, we've got our overall number 1 seed. You know him, you love him, Carter.
Hey, happy to be here tonight. This is what you work for all semester, to be on the Tournament of Champions with these guys. We got a packed studio audience here tonight. It's a great time. The lights are bright. Let's get it.
Absolutely. And that packed studio audience, I'm pretty sure, right, they're here to root for our number 2 seed, Jacob.
Who doesn't love a good underdog story? I've been counting out every game this semester. I lost $40 in North Carolina. I got beat by 35 in 2K yesterday. I'm ready to pull off some upsets tonight.
You got a first-round bye. You were the 2 seed. You're only an underdog against Carter now.
Story.
Absolutely, yeah. No one thought he'd be here, ladies and gentlemen. And folks, you've seen him on the show already tonight. It is Adam, our overall 3 seed, who has made his way to the second round. Adam, why don't you just go ahead and introduce yourself again? Tell us how you're feeling now.
No, good to be here. It's a lot of questions. So it's did a lot of research today, so I'm feeling good about round 2.
Now we're all very curious to see if the rest that are number 1 and 2 seeds were able to get during their bye, if that's going to help, or if they've gotten rusty in their time off. Let's see who's the sharpest, and let's hop right back into it. And right now we're going back to Longhorn football. One of the newest Longhorns on the roster is also easily the most notable. Ever since he left high school, Quinn Ewers has been the subject of high acclaim, with many expecting him to quickly ascend to the upper echelon of college quarterbacks. Now that he's found his way to the 40 acres, he has joined a roster that desperately needs that high level of QB play that we feel like has been promised. So, panel, do you expect Quinn Ewers to live up to the immediate hype that he has built up around him now that he has finally made his way to Texas? And Carter, start with this one on you.
Well, the spring game is such a great time for this semester because we get to go to DKR, we get to tailgate, we get to look at this Texas football team, but you're not going to find out a lot of answers about what the on-field product will look like because Steve Sarkisian is going to keep the offense very vanilla, and I promise you, no matter what happens in this spring game, the QB1 competition will not be decided. But what you love about the spring game is you get the chance to look at individual players and see the improvements they've made. Now, will Quinn Ewers live up to the hype here? The hype is about what you personally think. So if you're already thinking that Quinn Ewers is a Heisman contender, then no, he's not going to live up to the hype. If you're thinking that he is the building block and the next great quarterback for Texas and it'll be a slow process to that, then yes, he will. Look, Adam mentioned it before in the first round. Quinn Ewers hasn't played a real football game in 18 months. He skipped his senior year of high school to go to Ohio State, and now he's transferring to Texas. He's got all the physical tools. He's got the rocket arm. He's got the awesome hair, but he hasn't had that production just yet on the field, so expect some road bumps. Expect that he will make a few dazzling throws in this game, but that's okay if he has a few mess-ups. It's okay to temper expectations. It's going to be a long road to him being the starting QB, but he will be a Heisman contender when it's all said and done at Texas.
So, you know, I think what people are expecting is that he is ready to be a quarterback. So, as much as it may, to be a starting quarterback. Yep. Now, as much as it may be unfair, it would be in classic Texas fan base fashion. If he doesn't show out at the spring game, I think people might think the sky is falling. So, it's going to be very interesting to see. But I'm also very interested in seeing Jacob's answer to this question. Good news, we're on to him next.
Perfect. I would just like to say the fact that you said he has awesome hair is definitely the hottest take I've heard all semester. Definitely, that's not a great option. No, he's not going to live up to the hype. Not one person can live up to the hype that Texas football has set for Quinn Ewers, except for maybe Vince Young himself 20 years ago. They're expecting this guy to come in the spring game and throw 3 straight 75-yard touchdown passes to 3 different receivers. They're expecting him to walk around on campus with just a golden arm and shining and shimmering above the rest. ESPN put us at number 6. Longhorns 247 and Bleacher Report have all put him as one of the top 5 transfers in the country and one of the best players that's going to be coming into this league. But like, I'm so sorry. Like Adam said, like everyone else has said, he has not played in 18 months. He is still young. He's basically been playing his first year of actual college football. There's going to be growing pains. He's going to be great. I think he's definitely the guy that's going to take us to a Big 12 championship. But the number one problem that we still haven't fixed this season is our offensive line. And if he doesn't have any support there, he's going to struggle. And like I said, I love our O-line. I think they've gotten a little bit better. But be happy with 9 wins or 10 wins. Be happy that we don't lose by 42 to Alabama. Just go ahead and accept the growing pains and let things like naturally come. And let him give his time. Next year, I think we'll be in the Big 12 championship. I think this year we could even do it. But please, don't drink the Kool-Aid. Delete the Bleacher Report app. And let's just let Quinn play out his first year at Texas.
I think you saying be happy with 9 or 10 wins is you yourself drinking the Kool-Aid. I mean, I'm looking at bowl eligibility this year. By the way, I wanted to be noted, I think before the show you said, well, just talk about how bad Texas's offensive line is and Drew will give you the points. You very well might. That was a great answer. Adam, we're on to you next.
Yeah, I'd take 10 wins. I'd buy
I would love that
for 10 wins. But yeah, I think it's going to take time. And Texas actually has a tougher, once they get past their first game next year, I mean, they got Alabama and UTSA back-to-back in their last 2 non-conference games. So there's definitely going to be some growing pains. It might not be pretty against Alabama, but just looking at the spring game this weekend, can you remember the spring game from last year or 2 years ago or 3 years ago? I mean, there's going to be a bunch of hot takes. There's going to be a bunch of over-analysis from a game where there's probably not going to be a completely real pass rush. It's going to be probably a little bit more touch football than tackle football. I think you have to take everything you see this weekend with a grain of salt. I don't think Texas is going to decide its quarterback until we get to August. And then, like Jacob said, we got to see about this offensive line. Devin Campbell, Kelvin Banks not here yet. So I think it'll be good to see Quinn Ewers out in a real kind of game situation under the lights at DKR. See what kind of throws he makes. Maybe you see, a moment of promise too with ball placement or with maybe precision. But I think, it's going to take some time. It's going to take until probably Texas gets into conference play to really tell what the Longhorns have. I think Quinn Ewers, I think he's definitely in a good position. He's got a ton of weapons around him. He's got an O-line that's getting better. I think he's in a good position to succeed. But don't overestimate, don't overlook at this spring game and rush to conclusions. That is still 4, 5, 6 months down the road until we see what type of team Texas will be this year. But hey, I'd take 10 wins. If Jacob's going to offer me 10 wins, I'll take it right now.
I'll go 9.5.
Conservative take from Jacob. Now, Adam, interesting. I'm just wondering, when you say you don't think that a starting quarterback will be named until the season starts, I would agree with this officially. Do you think that we won't officially see one until near the start of the season, or do you think truly a decision internally won't be made until then?
I would guess. I think Ewers is definitely the front runner. I think he's going to be the guy. I think Hudson Card got a raw deal last year. When he came in, the offensive line was very questionable. So Ewers is definitely the front runner. I think it would be disrespectful for Sarkisian to count Card out. But I would guess that Ewers is getting more of the first team reps than Card. But it's not going to be confirmed until we get to August.
Fair enough. We've got extra time on the air tonight. These are the kind of extra questions you can ask just for fun. That said, a result very appropriate for our top 3 overall seeds the entire semester. You guys have tied. You will all be getting the 3 on this question. Boo me all you want. On our last show, the panel and I expressed some serious doubts that Texas women's softball would be able to avoid a sweep in their series against the undefeated Oklahoma Sooners, the undefeated at the time Oklahoma Sooners, because I am very happy to say, hook 'em, and that we were wrong. That's right. Texas handed OU their first loss of the season, an impressive feat considering the Sooners are considered by many to have the potential for historic greatness. As great as the moment was, though, it still left me unsure of what exactly it meant for Texas. After all, they did lose the series, with one of the games being an absolute blowout that got mercy ruled. And rivalry results don't always correlate with the quality of the 2 teams that were playing. They don't always speak to the long term. So, panel, where does this result leave the Longhorns with respect to their status as a real contender this year? And on this one, we are starting with Jacob.
Okay. This one's kind of a weird question because I'm going to say it leaves us exactly at the same place we were in when the weekend series started. Nothing good happened, nothing bad happened, and it's for the exact same reason you said. This was 2 ranked opponents. This was Red River. We had a Longhorn legend getting her jersey retired that same exact day, and it was the largest attendance ever recorded at McCombs Field for an entire series and for an individual game. It was meant for an upset. It was created for an upset, and that's okay. Back when I thought Texas baseball was actually good, I said it was okay when we lost that first game of the season. Upsets happen. That's all right. And honestly, for OU, yes, it's going to do not really a lot to hurt them, but it's going to say like, oh yeah, the mighty Sooners can lose. But that is still the best team in college softball. Now, for Texas, they had not lost a game prior to that Alabama series since March 5th. They've picked it up. They swept LSU, which was a ranked opponent at the time. Texas softball is doing great. However, I still think we're a middle-of-the-pack Big 12 team because we still got Norman and Bedlam right above us. I'm going to go ahead and say it does a lot for us as a team in terms of our, I want to say our swagger and in terms of our credibility for ourselves and that we take ownership in ourselves, but it's not going to do much in the eyes of everybody else.
Absolutely, but as for the eyes of Texas, I would say it felt great for everybody. Come on, just seeing that result, I think we all kind of thought it was impossible. That said, Adam, we are on to you next.
Yeah, this will be an interesting question to ask about a week from now, because this weekend the Longhorns are traveling up to Stillwater to take on Oklahoma State, which is the top 7 team in the nation. So they're right up there with their in-state neighbors in Oklahoma. But I agree with Jacob. I think you have to take this with a grain of salt. I think it showed that Texas can beat anyone on any given night, but they also lost 5 in a row earlier this year at the St. Pete Invitational. So it shows they can have some slip-ups. Definitely some promises, though. Mia Scott, freshman, she had a 3 RBI double. Haley Dolcini had a complete game to hit the Sooners in the victory. So I think it definitely showed some promise. But when you get to the College World Series, it's not just one big one. You got to string wins together. And considering this Texas team lost the first 2 games of the series before taking the last one, they didn't necessarily go out there and dominate OU. So I think they show that they can hang with any team in the nation on any given night. They're number 16 in the nation. They're ranked like that for a reason. We'll learn a lot more about them this weekend. But are they suddenly national title contenders? I don't think so. They won 1 game in a rivalry game in front of a packed house at home. So good team, not an elite team just because they beat Oklahoma.
Absolutely. You bring up that 5-game losing streak from earlier in the season. Feels so long ago now, but the team's problems with inconsistency still rear their head. That said, Carter, your answers are always consistent in their merit, and we're on to you next.
No pressure.
He's blushing, ladies and gentlemen. He's blushing.
I had it all prepared, and you just threw it up. Texas softball just beat a team that won 40 straight games. Texas softball has Janae Jefferson, who is about to break the Big 12 career hits record, and Texas softball is 31-12. So where is Texas softball now? Well, they're postseason contenders. That's what they are. Look, I know they won 1 out of 3 games in this Oklahoma series, but it's not like Oklahoma laid off the gas at all. They pitched Jordy Ball in 2 of the 3 games. Jordy Ball was 16-0 with a 1.9 ERA, and Texas got 8 hits off of her, which was the most hits out of anyone the entire season. Texas pitching, also, you talk about they had 1 run rule loss. Yes, that was a not so good game, but in 2 out of 3 games, and well, I shouldn't even say 2 out of 3 games. They played good 2 out of 3 games, but in the entire series, they held Oklahoma to a .167 batting average. That's a high-powered OU offense that they just held. So we can talk about, oh, they won 1 game versus a rivalry in front of a packed crowd. Yeah, that's awesome, and that means I think it's time for them to start thinking about the postseason. Now, this upcoming week, they, like Adam said, will face Oklahoma State, and they're facing a familiar face in Miranda Ellish, a former Texas transfer who is the best pitcher and the best hitter on that Oklahoma State team. The Big 12 is a 3-team race right now with OU, Oklahoma State, and Texas. But Oklahoma State hasn't played OU or Texas yet, so their 11-1 conference record is a little inflated. Texas needs to go 2-3 this weekend against Oklahoma State, but they're in the postseason contention right now.
Absolutely. Part of me has been wanting to say this whole time, if it's not a big deal that Texas stole a game from OU, why couldn't the last 40 teams do it? I mean, it does say a lot about the team. I don't know if it propels them into true contendership, but it does tell us they're capable of playing at that level. That said, everyone, great answers all around, but Jacob, you'll be getting the 3 here, Carter the 2, and Adam the 1. We've got to cut to commercial break, but when we come back, there will be 2 more questions to determine which 2 of these panelists will go to the finals. You won't want to miss it. Welcome back to the College Crossfire Tournament of Champions, ladies and gentlemen. The scores currently are Jacob in first place with 6, Carter in second place with 5, and Adam in third with 4. And I would like to remind everybody that after these 2 questions, the panelists in first and second place will move on to the finals. Let's just get straight back into it. Looking across the slate of playoff series being played in the NBA's first round, it seems that none have drummed up more intrigue than the Brooklyn Nets versus the Boston Celtics. It's a tough draw for the Celtics, whose reward for earning the 2nd best record in the Eastern Conference was a matchup with one of the most dangerous and deadly 7 seeds in recent years, that of course being the Nets, a team more than capable of pulling the upset. Now, Game 2 of the series just went final, but things could still go either way. So, panel, let me know. Who you got, Brooklyn or Boston? In this one, we are starting with Carter.
Well, you said just there that Boston got a draw with a really dangerous number 7 seed. That's true, but I think it is important to note why they are number 7 seed. That's because they are very dysfunctional as a team. They lost James Harden mid-season because he couldn't get along with Kyrie and the other players on the team. Kyrie himself has played in less than half the games because he sat out due to his non-vaccination status. So he is still working into game shape in these playoffs. Look, the Nets have 2 of the best 3 players on the entire court in Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, but they're not going to win this series because the Celtics have home court advantage and the Celtics are a deeper team. The Celtics have Jason Tatum, who is looking to take the next step and lead the Celtics further into the playoffs. I think he's a superstar. He averaged 27 points per game and 8 rebounds per game. They've got the Defensive Player of the Year in Marcus Smart. And yes, they lost Robert Williams, but they're still out-rebounding the Brooklyn Nets all over the glass, 43-29 in the game 1. And I don't know what the mark was in game 2 because the game just ended. Look, Boston is a deeper team. They have the home court advantage, and I don't know how long Brooklyn can put up a fight against them because if Kyrie and KD don't play out of their mind, who else is stepping up? Oh, and by the way, Brooklyn is old as hell. They're 28.1 years old, and for average team age, that's second in the NBA behind the Los Angeles Lakers. I don't know how that holds up over a 7-game series.
Well, people have excused their 7th seed because, like you said, they lost some players mid-season, but Carter is clearly predicting that they will have a pretty mid-ending to their season. And this one, Adam, actually, we're moving on to you next.
Yeah, I think, like Carter said, the Celtics are deeper. They had 4 guys in game 1 score 20 or more points. Marcus Smart, Al Horford, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum. Tatum had the game winner as well. And then tonight, looking at the box score, they had 5 guys who scored 17 or more points. So, and you look at the Nets, and outside of Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, there's not a ton there. And, some people are like, well, Ben Simmons might be back for games 3 or 4, but how much of an impact is he going to make offensively? He's more of a liability offensively, definitely a liability at the free throw line more than anything. So you can almost make an argument that his return is actually going to hurt the Nets offensively, especially if he ends up on the free throw line a lot in a game. So, I like the Celtics squad, especially the 2-0 advantage. They took care of business. They have home court advantage. They took care of business in Boston. I think Brooklyn really need to split one of these Boston games to give themselves a chance in this series. I think the Celtics are too deep. Like Carter said, the Nets are too old. I like the Celtics' depth to win in this series. I thought it would go 6, but with the Celtics looking convincing, I think the Celtics might be able to take this one in 5.
Interesting. So if anything, you're feeling more emboldened about the Celtics now, more confident than you were at the beginning of the series. I think given how these first 2 games have played out, that is absolutely fair. Jacob, we are on to you next.
Sunday afternoon, ABC Sports, Celtics-Nets primetime afternoon game. All right, we got 1 minute left. Who's on the floor for Brooklyn? KD and Kyrie, obviously, but then Bruce Brown, Gordon Dragic, and Nick Claxton. Who? Nick Claxton? You're telling me with 1 minute left and 2 timeouts, Steve Nash trusts that 5 to go ahead and get a defensive stop. He trusts that team to go ahead and be able to score against a team that has the highest defensive rating in the NBA since January. A team that has won more games than any other team in the league since January. Not only that, it's like everyone else has been saying, they have nothing except a middle-aged, kind of middling, getting up there in older age Seth Curry. And frankly, that's really about it. They don't have any big guys that can dominate or even go against Al Horford or Daniel Tice. Not to mention Marcus Smart, Defensive Player of the Year, and the head coach of the Celtics. People don't see it, but it's there. He is a Greg Popovich disciple. He spent 8 years under Popovich in San Antonio, and look what he does. Look what Marcus Smart does when KD catches that ball in the baseline. They go in a trap, and they go ahead and they come and they swarm him. Why do you think he shot 4-14 tonight? They're doing exactly what they did to LeBron James in 2014, back when that was Kawhi Leonard's job. It's Marcus Smart's time now, and Boston should be treated as a contender for an actual trip to the finals. They should not be getting the disrespect that they've been getting this entire postseason. Now, the offensive firepower of the Nets will keep them in this series once or twice. Celtics in 5, though.
Celtics in 5, bold prediction. But yeah, I don't think anyone's predicting a sweep. But at this point, it just doesn't look like the Nets are going to come together quite the way that a lot of Nets apologetics kind of thought that they might. That said, Carter, great answers. You'll be getting the 3 on this one. Jacob and Adam, you guys have tied for the 2. So in case anyone's wondering, the 1 question left to determine which 2 make it to the finals, and the scores are currently Carter with 8, Jacob with 8, and Adam with 6. Let's get into it. Hey everyone, here's something you've heard a lot over the years. The Jacksonville Jaguars have the #1 pick in the NFL draft. 2 things make this pick very intriguing to me. 1, things are less cut and dry when the team with the top overall pick doesn't need a quarterback. Or in this case, when the team cannot afford to admit that they might actually still need a quarterback, or at least they will in a few years. I mean, Trevor's not going to work out. And 2, the decisions getting made by a team with a front office that is so incompetent that they are regulars in the top 10 draft pick club. So, panel, help them out. What should Jacksonville do with the top pick in this year's draft? And if you'd like, what do you think they'll actually do? In this one, we are starting with Jacob.
This is a really interesting draft class. There's not a clear-cut #1 pick for the first time in a while. It's starting to look like more when Eric Fisher got taken #1 overall as an offensive tackle. It's looking back to the early 2010s in terms of the draft. However, if I'm Jacksonville, I know that I built up my offensive line. I know that there is a very defensive-heavy front 15. I'm going to go ahead and play it smart. I'm going to trade back, and I'm going to collect a couple more first rounds on my way. I'm going to trade down to the 4 and go with the Giants, or maybe I'll even trade down to 8 and go with the Falcons, who are complete disarray now that they don't have a franchise quarterback, or Calvin Ridley, or Julio Jones, or frankly really anybody but Cordell Patterson. They're going to be freaking out. They're going to go for anybody. Go ahead and step back. Feel free to get a safety like Sauce Gardner, or you could even get Kyle Hamilton. He could slip down, or even one of the defensive ends can. Come back, get a couple first-round picks. However, this is the Jacksonville Jaguars, and their general manager, Trent Baalke, is from San Francisco, where for every single year, consistently for 3 to 4 years, he drafted guys on the defensive line in the trenches. So he's going to do that same exact thing this year. He's going to say, we're going to build this on the line. We're going to have a kind of middle-of-the-pack, below-average quarterback like Jimmy G. That will be Trevor Lawrence in this scenario. We're going to build up our defense, and we're just going to go ahead and go in the playoffs. So they'll be taking Walker out of Georgia #1.
Absolutely. Interesting. I wasn't sure if anyone would be so bold as to suggest that Jacksonville should trade away that first overall pick, but it's absolutely not a bad option considering the options they have in front of them and what the other teams in the draft are looking to do. That said, Adam, we're on to you next.
I think the issue with that, though, is who's going to take the #1 pick. I mean, I think the interesting thing about this draft class, kind of like Jacob said, there's no clear-cut #1. So I don't know if there's going to be a team that's going to have the desire to give up the draft capital to get to #1, where they feel like, if they trade up to 3 or 4 instead, you're going to still get just as good of a player. I mean, you look at the top 3 defensive line, and Trayvon Walker, Calvin Thibodeau, and then Aiden Hutchinson. I mean, all 3 of those guys are talented players. You can get one of those guys, probably 1 through 4, because Akema Kwande from North Carolina State is going to be up there in the mix as well. So I don't see a team trading up to #1. I don't think there's a team that's going to be desperate enough. I think Jacksonville would like to trade down. I don't think it's a bad option. I just don't think there's going to be a team that actually take them up on it. So looking at the defensive lineman then for Jacksonville, they want someone to pair Josh Allen with, who's their standout defensive end they got out of Kentucky. Aiden Hutchinson, he's the one who has proven reliability, 14 sacks this past season at Michigan. Trayvon Walker only had 6 sacks at Georgia, but Walker is more athletic. He ran a 4.5 40-yard dash. Hutchinson ran a 4.73 40-yard dash. So it's kind of the, you're going to take the on-field production from Hutchinson that he showed at college, or you're going to take the athletic potential of Trayvon Walker. Trent Baalke in San Francisco, time and time again, he took the athletic potential. So I think Hutchinson is probably the more proven talent. I bet the Jaguars is kind of feeling that Eric Fisher draft, where Fisher kind of jumped up the #1 pick last moment. I think Trayvon Walker with the athleticism. But the Jaguars stay there, which I think they will, because I don't think anyone else will jump up there. I think the Jaguars will take Trayvon Walker when they go on the clock here in about a week's time.
Absolutely. Great points all around. Absolutely. Yeah, you just kind of crushed it with those combine numbers. That was a great answer. Nothing really else to say about it. Just pretty impressive stuff. That said, Carter, we are on to you next.
Well, in the NFL, the 2 most important things are a franchise quarterback and then someone who can rush the opposing team's quarterback. So the Jaguars last year, you got Trevor Lawrence, who right now you think is your franchise quarterback. He had a very rough year with Urban Meyer last year. Let's wipe the slate clean. Let's act like, here we go. Trevor Lawrence, you get another shot. Now you need to find someone to rush the passer, and that's why they're going to take Aiden Hutchinson out of Michigan. But what they should be doing is taking Kayvon Thibodeau out of Oregon, and they're going to kick themselves for the next decade because they didn't take Kayvon Thibodeau. Look, Kayvon Thibodeau was the #1 player overall in the class of 2019, and all he did was go to Oregon and was the freshman defense player of the year. Then he was a 2-time first-team All-Pac-12 selection. Then he was a first-team All-American, and he was widely regarded for the longest time to be the #1 overall pick. And for some reason, despite good on-field production, he had 7 sacks despite being the best player on Oregon's defense that everyone had to game plan for. For some reason, he is now not the consensus #1 pick, and I don't know why. And I think it's because sometimes we just overthink it, and the NFL scouts just overthink and say, hey, there has to be something wrong with this guy. And maybe it's because he talks about NFTs too much, or maybe because he talks about opening a school later after college. But whatever the reason is, somehow Kayvon Thibodeau we've been led to believe that he doesn't have a high motor and he doesn't care as much about football as Aiden Hutchinson. And frankly, I think it's unfair. I think Kayvon Thibodeau is more athletic. I think he's going to have a better NFL career, and he should be taken #1 overall.
Guys, you aren't going to believe this. This is great answers all around to everybody. Adam, you'll be getting the 3 on this one. Carter, you'll be getting the 2. And as a result, we have a tie for second place, ladies and gentlemen. Now, Carter, you're safe at the moment. You have 10 points. You will be advancing to the finals. But Jacob and Adam, each of you are sitting at 9. And as some of you know, in the event of a tie, I have a couple trivia questions in place. First one to get one right will advance to the finals. Carter, if you know the answer, just sit it out. Jacob and Adam, who was the first college football team to be ranked #1 in the very first college football playoff poll?
Florida State?
No.
Florida State?
Oregon?
No, neither of you are right. First playoff poll.
Oh, poll.
Oh.
Mississippi State?
This year?
Adam, you got it. Adam, you will be going to the finals. I love that trivia question because who would have thought it was Mississippi State? Ladies and gentlemen, what a photo finish. When we come back, it is going to be Carter versus Adam in the finals of the Spring 2022 Tournament of Champions. Jacob put up a great showing. I'm sorry. I hate to see you go out like that. A great season for a great competitor, ladies and gentlemen. But when we come back, we will be naming a champion. You won't want to miss it. Ooh, welcome back to College Crossfire, and I hope our panel is ready to think on their toes better than they ever have before, because it is time for the rapid fire of all rapid fires, the Tournament of Champions Finals, and this, of course, means that it is anyone's game. Excellent. Let's get right back into it. A recent article from The Athletic attempted to detail how the Colorado Buffaloes football program fell from the heights of winning half of a sham championship and otherwise being pretty decent in the 90s to being at the lowest rung of the sport in modern times. It's a sad state of affairs in Boulder, Colorado, but that is far from the biggest fall from grace that we have seen. So, panel, what program do you think has felt the steepest decline from former greatness, and what makes your pick the most embarrassing? And just for fun, let's open this up to programs across any major collegiate sport. Either of you can jump in.
Can I say Texas football?
Oh man, I knew it.
I mean, you look at the national championship with Colt McCoy. They were, 2009 national championship, and I think the next year they missed the bowl game. They were 5-7. They've missed, I believe, 4 bowl games the past decade. They lost to Kansas twice. They've gone through 3 head coaches. I'm hoping Sarkisian's the one, but I mean, it's hard for Texas. That Notre Dame game kind of sums up this past decade, right? The 2 teams they thought were the top 10. It was this crazy game on Labor Day, and then I don't think it either made a bowl game. So that kind of sums up Texas from this past decade. So
this is true. Neither made a bowl game. Texas went 5-7, and Notre Dame went 4-8. And was it Gus Johnson famously said Texas is back?
Yeah.
They were not back. Carter, that's going to be tough to beat. Who you got?
Well, it is going to be tough to beat, but I'm going to go with another former Southwest Conference foe in the Nebraska Cornhuskers. I think they are the most embarrassing fall from grace. The Tom Osborne, the wishbone offense that they used to have. They used to be the cream of the crop. Nebraska used to be a blue blood in college football, and I'd argue they had a steeper fall off than Texas. I mean, when's the last time Nebraska was anywhere in the national title or national conversation whatsoever? They've got Scott Frost, who was UCF's darling, just kind of wasting away there. They have Adrian Martinez, who just left the program after 3 seasons, and no one really cared. No one really cares about Nebraska anymore after they were a great dynasty. That's my pick on this one.
I swear Adrian Martinez has been in college for forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels like I couldn't drive when he had his freshman year in college, I swear. No, absolutely. I got to agree. I mean, Texas is a more recent major bowl win. They have a more recent national championship. They have a more recent conference championship. And Nebraska had to deal with having Bo Pelini for like 10 years. I think that's absolutely a further fall from grace. So, Carter, you will be getting the 2 on that one. 2 questions left to go, folks. Basketball has seen a recent slew of fans with a burning desire to leave their seats and make a spectacle of themselves on the court, with one fan even attempting to glue herself onto the court in an act of protest over an issue that I actually can't quite remember what it was for, come to think of it. It feels like it's a race to see who can get ejected the fastest and in the most attention-grabbing fashion. So, panel, if given the chance, how would you one-up these fans and earn yourself the most notable arena ejection of all time? Either of you can jump in or on to the court. That's great.
Well, I'm going to be jumping onto the court and showing off one of my many secret talents, and that is I can do the worm pretty well, and then also when I get up from doing the worm, I jump rope my leg in a single jump. So that's what I would do. I would do it on mid-court, and then I would get handcuffed and thrown in the clink.
Excellent. If you can we cut to it wide? If you can do it right now, I'll give you the points.
If I can do the worm right now?
If you can do the worm and then the leg thing.
All right. How are we gonna see, how's the camera gonna see this?
You gotta go up front. There we go.
This is a lot of pressure.
Wow. Excellent work. Let's get a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen.
I can't top that.
I'm still going to give you the chance. I just wanted to see it. I figured if I told you you get the points for it, that would make you more likely to do it. I'm very sorry, ladies and gentlemen. Adam, do you have a better answer?
I'd say, okay, if I was going to do it, I don't know if you can do this. I just remember back to, it was one of the Daytona 500s, 2011, 2012. One of the drivers lost control of his car and crashed in the jet dryer, and it got fuel all over the track, and then it set on fire and it burned the whole track up. So I think if you want to make some noise, set something on fire. I remember the Rams did with their pyrotechnics too, back when they were in St. Louis. So they'll remember you while they're cleaning up after you.
Great answer, but it was a formality. I mean, look, we had to let him answer. We have to fill airtime, ladies and gentlemen. We have contracts with the station, but I can't ask someone to do the worm and do the knee thing. What's it called?
Jumper. I don't know.
I can't ask him to do that and not give him the points. That said, we do have one question left to go. John Morant and Karl Anthony Towns' dads have started a rivalry of their own, trash-talking and making a bet in regards to the results of their sons' appearances in the NBA playoffs. This continues a rich tradition of parents of pro athletes keeping themselves in the news at the expense of their children. So, panel, who do you think is the most notable sports parent of all time? Either can jump in.
LeVar Ball is not even close. That dude had a microphone at his disposal for so long on ESPN. He was on Sports Nation, First Take. I mean, he could say anything. It's a blessing, actually, now that they're kind of taking the microphone away. I haven't actually heard from him in a couple of years, which thank goodness for his sons, too, getting a chance to play. I mean, he sent one of his sons off to Lithuania, so I think he kind of had an adverse impact on their careers, I think. So LeVar Ball, definitely. When he had the microphone in his face for that year or two, definitely the most notable father in sports.
It was the obvious answer. It's the one I thought of when we wrote this question. I mean, Carter, who you got?
I'll go with one. I mean, I was thinking maybe I could go Tiger Woods' dad. I mean, he was obviously very integral in Tiger's golf performance, but I think I'm gonna go with Gardner Minshew's dad, he's the former quarterback for the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Gardner Minshew's dad?
Yeah, Gardner Minshew's dad was not the former quarterback.
Oh, I was like, how does that even work? They've been around for like 20 years.
I don't know what Gardner Minshew's dad actually did, but when they showed him in the stands looking like a beefcake, it was so funny. He just had the thickest arms, and then the videos of Gardner Minshew and his dad like hugging after the games was always so great. He and his dad had a lot of great energy, so I'm gonna go with that. That's always stuck out to me.
Absolutely. Look, it's a great answer. A notable dad for a very notable player with a very notable mustache, but you have to give the points up to Adam on this one. LeVar Ball is the obvious choice, and frankly, it is the correct choice. So, much like Texas softball, you may have stopped Carter from getting the sweep in rapid fire, but Carter, you have just won your very first Tournament of Champions. Let's take it away to FaceTime.
Well, I don't know. I have to double check my facts here, but I might have been the first one to try to worm to win the Tournament of Champions. And, you know, this is, like I said before when I got on here, this is what you work all semester for. You know, had a great time coming on this show all semester, talking with my fellow friends here about some sports. It's a great show. I've had an amazing time, and I'm looking forward to coming back next semester, too. I don't think I'm done here.
Not going to the transfer portal?
Not going to the transfer portal whatsoever.
Well, Carter, to be honest, we couldn't afford to lose you. I just want to take this moment to highlight. I mean, you have, for my money, been the all-star of the show all season, all semester long. Just great appearances. I mean, significantly more wins than losses all year. I think this is a well-deserved accolade for you. Great rookie season here on College Crossfire. And so congratulations, Carter, and thank you to everyone for tuning in to tonight's episode of College Crossfire. This was not the season finale, however, as we will coming at you with 2 special episodes in the coming 2 weeks. We have got an alumni show and a senior show. What was the name of the website I was to plug? Support Student Voices. Everyone go support Student Voices and donate some money to supportstudentvoices.org. The proceeds go to the TSTV organization. Additionally, be sure to wake up with the 1-0 Sports Show for Friday mornings at 10 a.m. if you like more Adam. So for all the panelists and everyone in studio and master control, I'm Drew Jacob. Congratulations once again, Carter, and everyone have a wonderful evening.